The story begins with a boy named Lloyd standing silently in front of the ruins of his city, his eyes hollow and drained of all hope. An S-ranked witch named Marin finds him there and hugs him from behind while blaming herself for the tragedy and vows never to repeat the same mistakes she made with her first student. From that day forward, she takes Lloyd into her care and begins training him in the ways of magic. Marin starts Lloyd's training with fire magic by demonstrating a simple flame spell and telling him that he won't be getting any dinner unless he figures out how to cast it as well. Lloyd practices diligently for hours, and just before sunset, he finally manages to create a small flame. Excited, he proudly shows Marin his achievement, but instead of praising him, she exhales gently, snuffing out the flame, and then roasts him with a burst of fire to make it clear he still has a long way to go. The next day, Marin teaches him some water magic by sweeping her foot along the ground to summon a small spout of water. When it's Lloyd's turn, he manages to dampen the earth just slightly and looks quite pleased with himself. But Marin isn't impressed, and to show him what proper water magic looks like, she dumps a massive wave over his head with a single snap of her fingers. As time goes on, Lloyd continues to give his best effort in learning new spells from all elements, while Marin delivers harsh punishments whenever he falls short. By winter, Lloyd has improved so much that he can shape a snow sculpture of Marin with little effort, but as usual, Marin takes control of the sculpture and uses it to grab Lloyd and dramatically enlarges it to demonstrate what true mastery over ice really looks like. Eventually, the sculpture collapses and Lloyd tumbles into the snow, but that only makes him want to push himself harder. One morning, Marin is lying on the couch, suffering from a hangover from drinking too much the previous night. Lloyd comes in to check on her, and wanting to help, he places his hand on her forehead and uses his healing magic to ease the pain. Within seconds, Marin feels better and sits up with a quiet sigh and gives him a warm hug to thank him for the healing. For a moment, Lloyd thinks he's finally made her proud, but she immediately grabs his arm, says it's time to resume his training, and drags him back outside like nothing ever happened. This routine continues for several months until one evening Marin is reading an old book that brings back some painful memories, and just as she's about to put it away, Lloyd knocks on the door to call her for dinner, and the book ends up slipping from her hands and lands in front of Lloyd. Lloyd bends down to pick it up, but the moment his fingers touch it, ancient knowledge floods into his mind and knocks him out cold. Marin quickly rushes to his side and realizes that he has the traits of the Chosen One. After that, she carries him to bed and places a soft kiss on his forehead, casting a gentle spell to keep his power under control. She remembers the pain of what happened before and refuses to let him grow arrogant with his powers like she once did. The following day, Lloyd's training continues, and this time Marin takes him into the forest to practice his white magic, where she explains that it's meant to support others. Lloyd focuses his power on a single fruit and manages to make it ripen and turn juicy, earning a quiet nod of approval from Marin. To show him how much further he still has to go, she places her hand on the tree and casts her own spell, making the entire tree bloom with fresh leaves and fruit. That night, while helping him study, Marin tells him about orcs who use rare magic to control monsters, but when Lloyd comes across a passage about ancient magic and asks about it, her expression hardens and she tells him it's something he doesn't need to learn. During one of their drills, Marin tells Lloyd to summon a magic staff in an instant, but when he reacts too slowly, she hits him with her own staff and tells him that no matter how strong he gets, he can't let himself get lazy. Lloyd listens carefully and promises to stay focused and never take his training lightly. Later that evening, Marin starts teaching him about magic stones and explains that they are solid pieces of mana so powerful that they can turn anything they touch into more magic stones, including people. A few months later, Marin brings Lloyd deep into the forest, hands him a small knife, and tells him that he has 1 week to survive on his own and find his way back home using only his magic. Before he can ask any questions, she takes off running and disappears into the trees, leaving him completely alone. Not long after she's gone, a huge wolf jumps out from the bushes and charges at him, and Lloyd barely manages to climb up a nearby tree to avoid getting attacked. He knows that as a white mage, he doesn't have the power to fight something that strong, so his only real option is to find a safe path home without running into more monsters. When he uses magic to scan the area, he realizes just how far off course he's gone, and with no other choice, he starts making his way through the forest step by step. Once night falls, he uses the quiet time to study his spells and improve them little by little, combining what he already knows to boost his magic, increase his speed, and sense monsters nearby. After a few long days of traveling, he accidentally snaps a twig under his foot, and the sound alerts a massive spider hiding nearby. His heart races as he turns and runs, casting his speed spell to get away as fast as he can. And after a long and exhausting journey, he finally makes it back home and collapses right outside the door. When Marin finds him lying there, she can tell how hard he has struggled, and for the first time, she feels truly proud of how far he's come. Several years pass, and one afternoon while Lloyd is cleaning the house, he notices a book lying open on Marin's desk that talks about a town far away. Curious, he asks if he can borrow it, and she tells him to keep it. By now, Lloyd has finished most of his training, so Marin no longer gives him daily lessons, though she still calls on him often to help with new spells. He doesn't complain, but after staying up night after night for her magical experiments, the lack of sleep is starting to wear him down, and the thought of living in a normal town keeps growing stronger, so eventually he decides to act on it. One morning, Marin walks upstairs to call him for another experiment, but when she opens the door and sees that he's not there, she notices the book still open on the desk, and from the marked pages, she knows exactly where he went. After a long journey, Lloyd finally reaches the town and is immediately taken in by how busy and full of life it is. He spends the last of his money on a simple loaf of bread and quickly realizes he's broke and needs to find work. Just then, a flyer advertising for adventurers flies right into his face, and without thinking too much about it, he decides to apply. All while we see a cloaked man watching him from a distance. He ends up getting scooped up by hero Alan, and after joining his party, Lloyd is brought along on a quest to slay giant Cyclops. As the battle begins, the Cyclops grows more aggressive, and Alan tells the healer Sheena to restore his health. Right before she casts her spell, Lloyd silently uses a powerful buff spell that increases the stats of the entire team without saying a word. A moment later, the archer lands a clean shot in the Cyclops' eye, and Rena blocks one of its punches with her shield, surprised at how easily she stopped it. This gives the attack mage enough time to bind the Cyclops with her vines, and without questioning his sudden power boost, Alan charges in to finish the monster with a strong final blow, fully convinced the victory was all his doing. But Rena starts suspecting that Lloyd had something to do with it. With the Cyclops defeated, the party heads back to town, where Alan is welcomed like a hero, with people cheering his name and praising him for taking down a monster no one else could beat. The reward for the quest turns out to be massive, but when they return to the mansion, Alan pushes just 5 gold coins towards Lloyd and says it's because he's only a D-rank rookie, but Lloyd doesn't argue and quietly takes the money. Later, when Alan raises a toast to celebrate the victory, Lloyd excuses himself, saying he's not really into drinking. Maya, the red-haired mage, seems offended by his choice to leave, but Alan brushes it off and says it doesn't matter, since they can always find another white mage, and it's not like Lloyd made much of a difference anyway. Later that night, the cloaked man from before arrives at Marin's door, and she immediately recognizes his voice as Will. She invites him in and asks about Lloyd, and he tells her that Lloyd made it to the town safely and has already joined Alan's hero party. Marin thanks him for checking in and says it was time for Lloyd to get some real experience, as long as he doesn't grow overconfident like she once did. Will pauses for a moment, then asks if she still regrets what happened back then. Marin's expression tightens as she remembers the day everything went wrong. She hadn't expected the Demon Lord to destroy himself just to get his hands on the grimoire, and that single mistake ended in the destruction of the entire village, killing everyone nearby, including herself. But in those final moments, their companion Sybil used forbidden ancient magic to reverse the damage and bring everyone back, though it cost him his life. Ever since that day, Marin hasn't stopped blaming herself. Back in town, Lloyd continues supporting the hero party from the sidelines, quietly casting buffs during battles whenever things start to go south. Thanks to his magic, the team keeps winning fight after fight, always coming out on top with barely a scratch, even though none of them realize how much of that is because of him. During one of their tougher quests, the group finds themselves struggling against a powerful Minotaur, and just as it's about to land a heavy blow on Alan, Lloyd uses his magic on Rena, giving her just enough strength to intercept the attack and knock the monster back. That moment gives Sheena time to heal Alan, while the mage traps the Minotaur with her vines, letting Alan finish it off in one clean strike. Later that night, Rena is sitting in her room reading a book on defense magic when Alan walks in and asks what she's doing. She explains that lately, monster attacks haven't been hitting her shield as hard as before, and she wants to understand why. Alan laughs and says he's noticed the same thing, but just figured his natural talent was finally showing. Rena, however, points out that he hasn't trained at all, so something doesn't add up. Meanwhile, deep in the forest that night, a group of guards get attacked by a giant earth golem as they were finishing up their patrol. The next morning, the captain of the guard visits Alan and asks for his help, explaining that the patrol unit was wiped out by a golem near the border. He also mentions that the area is known for black market activity, and it might be linked. Alan agrees without hesitation, brushing it off, saying crushing a few rocks will be no problem. Later that day, Lloyd uses his tracking magic to lead the group deep into the forest, where they find a cave hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, they defeat the golem with ease, but before they can relax, a demon hiding in the shadows uses a magic stone staff to summon another golem from the rocks above. Lloyd quickly casts a buff on Lulu and tells her to shoot the demon. She hesitates, not used to taking orders from him, but fires anyway and lands the shot. Then he turns to Mia and asks her to teleport the staff to him. She looks unsure, but does it and watches as he seals the staff's magic before it causes more damage. Meanwhile, Alan grows more irritated, clearly annoyed that Lloyd keeps taking control. To prove he's still the leader, he charges at the golem on his own, ignoring Lloyd's warning that it's unstable without the demon's control. Just as the golem is about to crush him, Lloyd boosts his speed and knocks Alan out of the way. But instead of thanking him, Alan yells at him for getting in the way, then jumps back in to deliver the final blow. Once they return to town, Alan leans back in his chair and tells Lloyd he's fired for being useless and doing nothing but standing in the back. Lloyd doesn't argue and accepts it, and after years of hearing from Marin that he lacked talent, part of him already believed it, so getting kicked out doesn't come as a surprise. With his pride in pieces, he walks away without a word while the others laugh behind him, except for Rena, who quietly watches him leave. Over the next few days, Lloyd searches for a new party, but most groups already have a white mage or just don't see any reason to take him in. After getting turned down again and again, he gives up and sits alone near the guild, feeling completely useless. That's when he hears someone yelling at the front desk. A pink-haired girl is begging the receptionist to find her a white mage, but the staff says her conditions are too specific. She says anyone will do, and the receptionist spots Lloyd sitting nearby and points him out, saying he's available. Hearing this, the girl walks over, grabs his hand, and tells him that he's coming with her. The day before, you and her party were on a quest to take down a bandit gang called the Dirty Clods. As the team goes over the plan one last time, their white mage Clum looks distracted, like something is weighing on her mind. After a quick pep talk, frontliners charge in, and their mage Silica follows up by blasting the enemies with a fireball. But since her next spell needs time to cast, the bandits rush her, only to get taken out in an instant by the party's archers shooting from above. You tears through the rest like a beast, cutting down enemy after enemy. And when one of them jumps her from behind, the tank steps in just in time to block the hit. The attacker mocks him for being weak, but after getting a boost from Clum's magic, he knocks the thug away like a sack of potatoes. Up on a ledge, a fat dwarf watches the fight, confused about how they're so strong. That's when Yu suddenly appears behind him and guesses he's the one in charge. He glances at her necklace and realizes she's an S-rank adventurer, but still tries to act calm as he summons his ultimate weapon, a giant golem rising from beneath the ground. The team quickly notices that its body is made of a material that blocks both magic and arrows, but Yu doesn't flinch and slams her full power into her greatsword, though the attack barely scratches the golem's shell. Realizing she needs more strength, she calls out to Clum to snap her out of her thoughts and ask her for a buff, and once her stats are boosted, she cuts through the golem like it's nothing. After the fight, Clum apologizes for spacing out during such a serious battle, but instead of getting mad, Yu asks how her sister Sylvie is doing. Hearing this, Clum's face turns grim, and she quietly says that she has to leave the party. Around the same time, Lloyd was dragging himself through day 3 of trying to find a new party when Yu spotted him in the guild and pulled him straight to her group without giving him a chance to ask what's going on. When she returns, the others are surprised to see her back so soon, assuming there's no way she found a white mage that quickly. But before anyone can say anything, she points at Lloyd and says he's the one joining their team. The thing is, she never explained any of this to Lloyd, and he just stands there confused. Yu freezes for a second when she realizes she doesn't even know his name, so Lloyd introduces himself to Dagas the tank, Cross the archer, and Scylla the mage. Yu flashes a proud smile and says she's the leader, but Lloyd quietly reminds her that he never agreed to join their party. The others aren't surprised, since this isn't the first time Yu has dragged someone in without warning. Cross says they should probably cancel the quest, since there's no way they can complete it without Clum, and it's not like some random white mage can take her place. Even Silica gently asks Yu to let it go, but Yu refuses and says she's not turning her back on a client who needs help. Lloyd suggests letting another party handle the quest, but Silica explains that it's an A-rank job and none of the other A-rank teams are available. Their party is S-rank, so they qualify, but without a registered white mage, they can't accept the quest. Guild rules don't allow temporary substitutes, and with no time left, they have no options. Lloyd wants to help, but Alan's words keep echoing in his head, and he can't imagine someone like him belonging in a party like this. While he's still doubting himself, Yu says they're good to go if Lloyd turns out to be strong, and without waiting for a response, she drags him out to a clearing and tells him to show them what he can do. Lloyd freezes, already imagining their disappointed faces when they see how weak he is. Dagas notices his hesitation and tells Yu to give him a clear task. She asks Lloyd to cast enhancement magic on the whole team at once. Lloyd blinks in confusion, thinking it's too easy, but she insists that's all he has to do. When he asks if she's serious, Yu nods and says if he can manage it, she'll let him join. Lloyd quietly summons his staff out of thin air and casts the spell without chanting. The others stare, not just because of the buff, but because of how he pulled his staff out of thin air like Houdini and how fast he cast it. At first, Yu doesn't feel anything, so she decides to test it herself, and with one clean swing of her sword, she cuts down a giant tree like it's made of soft butter. The whole party falls silent. Cross says his body feels lighter, and Dagas wonders if that was really a multicast. Lloyd admits he didn't just use strength buff and added defense, speed, and vitality as well, just in case. The others continue staring at him in silence, and Lloyd mistakes it for disappointment. He quickly apologizes, saying he knows he's not strong enough to replace a real S-rank white mage, and turns to leave. But Yu grabs his arm and tells him to stop because there's no way she's letting someone like him walk away now. After seeing what Lloyd can do, Yu starts asking him a few questions, and during the conversation, he mentions that he used to be part of Alan's party, which is one of the only 4 hero parties recognized throughout the kingdom. Lloyd quickly adds that it wasn't a big deal, explaining that they only brought him in because they thought he had potential, but later kicked him out when they decided he wasn't strong enough. Cross shakes his head in disbelief, and Silica says she's never seen a mage as talented as him, while Daggis points out that he's never met anyone who could cast that many different enhancement spells at once. But Lloyd doesn't think much of it and says there are definitely people out there stronger than him, then gently suggests they should try asking their old white mage to come back instead. Yu pauses for a moment and then tells him that Clum isn't coming back because her younger sister is seriously ill and needs constant care. Up until recently, Clum was pushing herself to do both, taking on quests with the team during the day and looking after her sister at night, but it slowly wore her down and she began losing focus during battles. When it got bad enough that she started zoning out in the middle of fights, she made the decision to step away from the team before she became a liability. No one in the party wanted to let her go, but they all understood and respected her choice. That's why they've been trying to find someone new, even though filling her spot has proven nearly impossible. They managed to handle some quests without a white mage, but A-rank missions are too dangerous without proper healing, and they're already taking a risk just trying to manage without her. Lloyd can see how much Clum matters to the group, and wanting to help, he asks what kind of illness her sister has. Yu says she doesn't know the full details, only that Sylvie's body is slowly turning into Magistone. That catches Lloyd's attention right away. He remembers reading that Magistones can infect anything they touch, and he's been researching ways to reverse the effect. Thinking he might have a solution, he asks Yu to take him to Clum's home. Clum is surprised when they show up at her door, but she invites them in. Lloyd gently asks how Sylvie's condition started, and Clum explains that they were adventuring together when she found her sister unconscious with no idea what caused it. She leads them to Sylvie's room and warns them to brace themselves. The moment she opens the door, a wave of dark mana hits them. When Clum pulls back the blanket, parts of Sylvie's arms and legs are already turning to stone. Lloyd steps forward and asks to examine her. Clum doubts he can do anything, but he explains that if Sylvie was injured by a Magistone with high mana density, it could have triggered the transformation. He asks if the cave they explored had strong mana, and Clum confirms it did. Lloyd then checks her wound and confirms his theory. A Magistone must have entered her body and corrupted her mana. He says he needs to drain the excess energy out of her system while healing her at the same time. Clum is skeptical, but Yu tells her to trust him. Lloyd begins casting. The process is intense, pulling wave after wave of corrupted mana from Sylvie's body while healing her slowly so she doesn't collapse from mana loss. Clum asks what spell he's using since it doesn't look familiar, and Lloyd says it's something he came up with on his own. It's not efficient, but it lets him burn off the extra mana while healing at the same time. As the minutes pass, Sylvie's body starts to return to normal. The stone-like surface fades away and her mana stabilizes. When the spell ends, Lloyd falls to his knees from exhaustion, but it worked. Sylvie opens her eyes for the first time in years, and Clum breaks down in tears as she finally sees her sister awake and alive. As the sun begins to set, Clum thanks Lloyd for everything and tells Yu she's choosing to stay by her sister's side rather than rejoin the party. Though Yu looks a little down, she respects the decision. As they part ways, Clum smiles at Lloyd and says she's glad her old friends now have someone as dependable as him. Lloyd says he still doesn't feel worthy, but Clum tells him to stop overthinking and just follow his heart. That evening, the group gathers back at the tavern. Silica and Daggis are still stunned that Lloyd actually cured Sylvie, though his constant self-doubt makes Yu smack him on the head. He admits he's a little sad Clum won't be coming back, but the others remind him that her happiness matters more than anything else. Hearing their kind words and seeing how genuinely grateful everyone is, Lloyd slowly starts to let go of the bitterness from his past. Remembering Clum's advice, he finally listens to what he truly wants and asks if they'd still be willing to have him in the party. Turns out, they'd all been hoping he would ask. So when he does, they welcome him without hesitation. Yu officially declares him one of them and announces that they're throwing a welcome party whether he likes it or not. The party kicks off with everyone shoving a beer mug, and Yu announces that dinner's on them and tells him to eat as much as he wants. It's the first time anyone in the city has treated him this kindly, and Lloyd doesn't hold back. He digs in with wide eyes, clearing plate after plate, completely blown away by how good everything tastes. The others watch in confusion, wondering why he looks so amazed by such a normal tavern meal. To them, it's nothing special. But for Lloyd, the flavors are incredible, and it makes him wonder if everything he ate growing up was just bad. When they ask what kind of food he used to eat, Lloyd says it was mostly forest herbs and mushrooms, with the occasional monster meat when he managed to catch something. Sadly, his master's cooking wasn't much better than the ingredients, Yu laughs and asks what his master was like, since anyone who taught him magic that strong must have been impressive. Silica asks if she was a white mage too. Lloyd admits he never really thought to ask. From what he remembers, she was more of a combat mage, always blowing things up during her experiments. Silica is surprised someone like that could have even taught Lloyd support magic, especially since his master isn't a white mage. She wonders aloud if it must have been amazing to be her student, but Lloyd shuts that idea down right away. Just thinking about those memories sends a chill down his spine as flashes of brutal training sessions fill his head. Cross jokes that his master sounds like a pretty intense teacher, but Lloyd insists she had a soft side too, remembering the rare moments when she hugged him without setting him on fire. Once things settle down, Yu immediately steers the conversation back to business and starts talking strategy, but Daggers reminds her that Lloyd still doesn't know what the actual quest is. Yu admits she kind of skipped over the details, claiming she's not exactly great at explaining things, though Daggers tells her to quit slacking off and act like a proper leader for once. She sighs, pulls out the quest sheet, and Daggers goes over it instead. Their mission is to stop a group of monsters that have been tearing through farmland and destroying crops. The strange thing is that it's not just one kind of monster. Lloyd raises an eyebrow, saying that's almost impossible since different species never team up, but Daggers shrugs and says that's what the client reported. Yu tightens her grip on the table and says no matter what, they have to help the villagers. Cross agrees but points out that if a whole swarm shows up, fighters like him and Yu won't be very useful since they specialize in single target damage. Silica mentions that while her wide-range spells are strong, she doesn't have enough mana to keep blasting non-stop. She glances at Lloyd, hoping he can pick up the slack, but he admits with some hesitation that his offensive spells aren't very strong either. Daggers nods and lays out a plan. He and Yua will draw the monsters together into one big group, and Silica will take them out in one huge blast. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Cross will hang back to provide support and cover. Just picturing herself going all out with Lloyd's buffs already has Silica fired up, but Lloyd asks her not to expect too much. He reminds them that his last party dropped him for being weak. Yu tells him not to let that hold him back, and Cross says he'd rather have someone who's honest about their limits than a cocky guy who gets in over his head. That gives Lloyd a little confidence boost. As the group wraps up the meeting by roasting Yu like usual, they all get ready to head back. Lloyd quietly walks off in a different direction, but Daggers notices and calls out, asking why he's not coming to the inn. Lloyd awkwardly explains that he doesn't have the money and he's actually been sleeping outside the last few nights. Daggers doesn't say anything at first, that tosses him a small pouch of coins and tells him they'll just take it out of his future pay. Lloyd thanks him and promises to do his best. Daggers gives him a grin and says he's looking forward to seeing what the new guy can do. The next morning, Yu wakes up late as usual and finds the whole gang already outside. What catches her off guard is that no one is holding any backpacks. Turns out, Lloyd packed everything inside his dimensional storage. After he stores her gear too, the girls start fangirling over how insanely helpful he is. So Lloyd offers to teach them how to use storage magic since everyone is born with enough mana to pull it off. Daggers finds it hard to believe, but Lloyd says it's totally possible after some training. Cross dreams of all the arrows he could carry, while Silica also struggles to hold back her excitement. Before they head out, Yu twirls around like a Barbie because she is exploding with energy after getting Lloyd's buffs. Later, they reach a deeper part of the forest, where Daggers explains that beyond those mountains lies the Megocracy, also known as the Land of Demons. They haven't attacked in a long time, but no one knows when they will try to take over the continent again. As they cross a sketchy rope bridge, the group starts to feel a bit uneasy, so Yu being Yu decides it's the perfect time to start a game where everyone has to answer her strange riddles with even stranger answers. While the others throw out silly answers, Lloyd stays quiet. Yu turns to him with a big grin and tells him to lighten up and crack a joke. He calmly explains that his master never trained him in the art of cringe, so he never picked up how to be funny. Cross laughs and tells him to stop overthinking it and just yell out whatever random thought pops into his brain. But Lloyd locks in like it's a real exam, which makes Yu groan. She reminds him that there's no point playing if he takes it seriously because the whole point is to blow off steam when things get tense. After that, she drops the second riddle and the rest of the team once again starts shouting ridiculous answers. Lloyd completely freezes and apologizes, saying he's too dumb to act dumb, which finally makes everyone feel like he's fitting in. While they laugh, the scene cuts to a robed figure deep in the forest, kneeling before a jet-black stone radiating twisted mana. Meanwhile, back at the riverbank, a party sets up camp for the night. Lloyd unloads all their supplies from storage, while the girls collapse onto the grass, drenched in sweat and barely able to move. Yu tries to sweet-talk Daggers into letting her skip chores, but he shuts her down and reminds her they still have a ton left to do. Lloyd offers to handle the rest so Yu and Silica can take a break. As he wanders into the woods to gather firewood, he notices a golden fruit growing on a nearby tree, just like the one Marin once used to demonstrate healing magic. He takes a bite and starts remembering her again, but a sudden scream snaps him back to reality. The screams come from Yu and Silica, who are cornered between a massive basilisk and the edge of a waterfall. Without wasting a second, Lloyd bolts toward the cliff and launches a fire spell mid-sprint, sliding down the slope without hesitation. His fireball slams straight into the basilisk, drawing its attention away from the girls. He shouts for them to get back to solid ground while positioning himself between them and the monster. In one smooth motion, he summons both Yu's sword and Silica's staff from his storage, tossing the weapons toward them while casting quick healing spells to buff their bodies. The snake lunges forward, ready to sink its teeth into Lloyd, but Yu dives in and slices the creature in half before her feet even touch the ground. The basilisk thrashes wildly in its final moments, but Silica finishes the job by launching a massive fireball that roasts the monster in a single hit. The spell lands so hard that even she looks stunned by her own strength, made stronger by Lloyd's buff. After the fight ends, Yu asks Lloyd to store her sword again, but as she hands it over, her towel slips off. She gives him a solid slap for accidentally seeing too much, and Lloyd just quietly accepts his fate. Back at camp, Lloyd begins teaching the teen how to use storage magic with a quick and simple explanation, but somehow everyone struggles miserably. Even after hours of practice, they just flail around like they're trying to grab invisible soap. Lloyd starts to doubt himself, thinking he must be a terrible teacher, but the others reassure him they just need more time to figure it out. Then, out of nowhere, Silica says the word storage out loud and the spell finally activates. That's when it clicks. Unlike Lloyd, who can cast without chanting, the rest of them need to speak the spell to use it. With that solved, Silica manages to get the hang of it by sunset. As night falls and the fire dims, a heavy silence settles across the forest. While the others sleep, Lloyd stays on watch beside Yu. She quietly sits down next to him since there are no monsters nearby and softly thanks him for sticking with her chaotic team. Lloyd admits he wasn't doing much better before he joined them. Yu then confesses she still feels bad for dragging him into everything without asking, which makes Lloyd remember the way she got serious earlier when their client came up. Curious, he asks why she's so determined to see the mission through. Yu lets out a quiet laugh and says it's because it reminds her of home. She tells him that when she was a kid, a monster horde wiped out her entire village, and she was the only one who survived. The memory still haunts her, and seeing another remote village on the verge of collapse stirred up those old feelings. Since the town is cut off from the rest of the region, if their fields are destroyed, they'll run out of food and have no way to get help. She doesn't want to let that happen to anyone else. Before she can say more, Lloyd suddenly tenses. He senses something drawing near and immediately tells Yu to wake the others. They step out from the camp and soon spot it, a group of powlurks crawling through the underbrush, just like the quest mentioned. While trying to figure out where the insects are headed, Lloyd's eyes catch a second swarm heading directly toward them. He signals the others to quietly fall back, but of course, Yu steps on a dry stick that snaps louder than thunder. The sound echoes through the trees, and the three closest powlurks whip around on the spot. With no time to think, the group bolts, but their path is cut off as one powlurk blocks the trail and two more swoop in from the flanks. They quickly draw their weapons from storage and form a tight formation as sticky webbing shoots at them from every direction. The spiders move with sharp coordination, and during the chaos, one of them even snatches Silica's staff. The party waits like it's a turn-based game, silently waiting for an opening. As soon as the powlurks finish their volley, Lloyd steps forward and casts his enhancement magic on the entire squad. Now overflowing with energy, Yu leaps at the nearest monster, slicing through webs with ease. Cross powers up his legs and launches himself into a tree to recover Silica's stolen staff. As he tosses it back to her, Yu dashes beneath a powlurk, slices off half its legs, and brings it crashing down. She dodges another attack and grabs hold of a web strand to surf straight into the third one, cutting it to pieces mid-glide. Lloyd spots the opening and calls out to Cross and Silica to finish them. Silica unleashes a fireball that splits into three, each one igniting Cross's arrows mid-flight. When the arrows hit, the monsters go up in flames. Once the dust settles, Lloyd quietly apologizes for shouting orders and braces for Yu to scold him. Instead, Daggis claps him on the back and tells him to speak up more often because he's actually good at leading. Yu thanks him for saving the day, and the encouragement gives Lloyd a little of his confidence back. The next morning, his spirits lift even higher when his students manage to activate storage magic on their very first try. Riding that high, Yu takes the lead and marches the group deeper into the forest, while Lloyd lingers at the back, still wondering what could have drawn so many monsters to that area in the first place. That night, Lloyd sits alone by the campfire, quietly thinking about how strange the powlurks behaved. The whole swarm had been moving with purpose, heading in a single direction like something was calling to them. Just as he starts to get lost in thought, Yu walks over and asks if he really plans to keep watch all by himself. Silica follows behind and offers to take turns, but Lloyd gently tells them both to rest. If anything happens, he wants them at full strength. Yu frowns and says he shouldn't try to carry everything on his own, but Lloyd insists it's the least he can do after everything the team has done for him, but that only makes her more upset. Before she can argue, Silica lightly grabs her arm and calms her down, reminding her to trust Lloyd's judgment. Meanwhile, from inside the tent, Daggis and Cross quietly peek out, listening without saying a word. The next morning, the group pushes deeper into the forest. Yu still looks uneasy, especially when she sees Lloyd off by himself during their break casting an unfamiliar spell. Curious, she walks over and asks what it is. Lloyd replies that it's a detection spell which lets him sense nearby threats, but his range isn't anything special. Despite that, he plans to keep it running in the background to protect everyone from ambushes. Yu is amazed and asks if it's hard to maintain, but Lloyd shakes his head and says he's fine. She asks him if there's anything she can help him with, but he says no, and Yu walks away sadly, while Lloyd stands there, confused about what he said wrong. Later that night, Lloyd keeps watch by himself again. Yu watches from a distance, wondering why he never lets anyone help. Silica tells her not to take it personally. It took time for their team to build trust too, and Lloyd just underestimates himself. Yu nods but admits she's still curious about his past. Silica says she's excited for the day he finally opens up about his cool backstory. Outside the tent, Daggers tells Lloyd they need to talk. Lloyd says he can't leave his post, so Cross steps in and offers to keep watch instead. Daggers leads Lloyd into the trees and sets up a small alarm that rings when monsters get close. He says this is how they used to stay safe before Lloyd joined. Lloyd looks uneasy and says he won't be able to cast Detect if he's asleep. Daggers shrugs and says that's fine. They don't need magic for everything. What they need is their healer to rest for once. Daggers looks a little offended and asks if Lloyd really doesn't trust him. Lloyd quickly says the alarm's solid and he just wants to be extra careful. But Daggers brings up what everyone's been thinking. Lloyd always takes night watch alone, never leans on the team, and that kind of says it all. Lloyd doesn't know how to respond. He remembers Marin saying he's helpless alone and Alan calling him a burden. So he admits he pushes himself hard because he doesn't want to drag anyone down. Daggers sighs and tells him that's exactly what teammates are for. Nobody expects him to be perfect. The whole point of a party is to cover for each other. Lloyd smacks his forehead, realizing how obvious that sounds now. Daggers actually laughs and says he can't believe Lloyd made it this far without learning that. Then Lloyd quietly asks if it's really okay to be the weak link sometimes. Daggers claps a hand on his shoulder and tells him he's not weak, just tired. That night, for the first time, Lloyd lies down beside a team he can trust, and for once, the weight in his chest feels a little lighter. The next morning, Lloyd quietly walks over to Yu and finally works up the nerve to ask if she can fetch him some water. The moment she hears that, her face lights up with joy, while Lloyd just stands there smiling awkwardly. Without missing a beat, she grabs a bucket and drags him into the forest with her, completely ignoring the fact that all three of their teammates are secretly sneaking behind them, beaming with pride like proud parents spying on their kid's first date. Far away in a sleek stone mansion, a cloaked spy kneels before his purple-haired master, Michael, and delivers an update. The magic stones have been planted exactly as instructed, creating a perfect trail that lets Michael pinpoint a key location on the map. His eyes narrow with interest. Michael then asks about the adventurers stationed in Ishtar. The spy confirms that most of the strong ones were sent off to deal with the monster swarms just like they had planned. Only the weaker fighters remain in town now, aside from the hero's party. Michael clicks his tongue and says it's a shame they couldn't remove the hero completely, but his smile returns. He's eager to see how long the hero's party can stall what's coming next. After that, Michael orders his spy to inform the client that their time has finally come, wearing an evil grin on his ugly face. Meanwhile, back in the forest, Lloyd and the others start to notice how unnaturally quiet the woods are. Cross points out that it's weird they haven't run into a single monster since they left camp. Yu tries to stay positive and asks if it's thanks to Lloyd's magic, but he explains that his spell only detects monsters. It doesn't scare them off. That immediately makes Daggers uneasy, so Lloyd expands his detection range. Just then, he senses something dangerous. Yu quickly asks what it is, and Lloyd reveals there's a massive horde just 2 kilometers ahead. Cross realizes that's exactly the direction they're heading in. Before they can panic, Yu calls for a timeout because she's still trying to wrap her head around the fact that Lloyd's detection range is that huge. He casually claims it's normal for mages, but Silica laughs and says it's actually 10 times larger than what normal mages can do. Yu almost drags the conversation off track, but Daggers snaps them back to focus. They have a bigger problem on their hands. They rush to the farm only to find the number of monsters is way higher than what was written in the original quest. Looking from above, Yu says she's never seen this many high wolves gathered in one place, but what concerns Lloyd more is the large group of monsters he can't detect anymore. Silica also points out that the forest has many monsters more powerful than high wolves, which means all of those creatures have gone somewhere else. Just then, Lloyd gets an idea and asks Yu if she knows where the farm's owner is because he wants to ask him some questions, but she tells him the man got injured and is living in town with his son. Just then, Cross spots something in the swarm and tells everyone he sees a strange stone in the field, but Silica and Yu don't see anything. Hearing that, Lloyd casts a spell to zoom in and also spots a huge big black rock. After Yu begs him to use the spell on her too, he casts it on everyone, and they all get chills after watching the creepy aura coming from it, which Lloyd thinks is dark magic. Looking closer, he confirms it's orc magic, which is a rare power that some orcs use to control monsters. Then Lloyd senses something and uses his detection magic again, only to discover that another massive horde of monsters is heading straight toward them. This time, there are thousands of them. It hits him that the magic stone was planted on purpose to attract the swarm, and he starts to think it's suspicious that someone would go through such an indirect method just to wipe out adventurers. Cross, feeling hopeless, suggests they run for it, but Yu snaps and refuses to abandon the farm. Cross fires back and asks if she seriously thinks they can handle 1,000 monsters, which makes her go quiet. Daggers and Silica also point out that even if they wanted to run, it's already too late. That's when Lloyd finally speaks up with confidence and says he has a plan. The first step is destroying the magic stone. He looks at Cross and asks if he can hit the target from this distance. Cross says he won't miss, though he's not sure the stone will break, and that's good enough for Lloyd. With no time to waste, Cross locks in on the crystal, while Lloyd begins chanting every enhancement spell he knows, buffing both the archer and his weapon. The moment Cross fires, the arrow glows with power and shatters the stone in a single hit. Cross is stunned by how powerful the shot felt, and Lloyd explains that he cast his magic on both the archer and the arrow to boost its impact. Lloyd's clever thinking leaves the whole team shaking, but he shrugs it off and says all he really did was use a few support spells. So the real hero is Cross for destroying the magic stone like an American school. After that, Yu notices the wolves are now turning on each other, and Lloyd explains that their instincts came back just like he planned. His tactics amaze Yu again, but he warns her that the monster horde is still charging straight toward them, even without the stone controlling them. With no time to waste, the group takes position outside the forest and braces for the onslaught. Spiders, wolves, and all kinds of nasty creatures come stampeding out of the woods, and even as Silica and Yu start to panic, Lloyd calmly tells everyone to wait until he gives the signal. They clench their jaws and hold their ground right up to the final moment. Just as the monsters lunge towards Silica, Lloyd calls out, and she swings her staff, summoning a fire tornado that vaporizes everything in its path. Watching in awe, Yu asks what Lloyd did to her magic, and he casually says he just boosted her power and made her casting more efficient. He then turns to Silica and asks if she has enough mana left. She nods and says she can still fire off 5 more spells. Lloyd tells her to switch to wind magic next, and rushes over to Cross, who's been waiting for his turn now that the whole area is cloaked in thick smoke from the fire. Using telepathy to link their minds, Lloyd begins feeding Cross the exact positions of every flying monster hidden in the smoke. Now that he can see the flying monsters clearly, Cross starts shooting them down one by one with ease. Lloyd quickly runs back to Silica to finish the final step of his plan, and she tells him she's completely out of mana. Without hesitation, he takes her hand and transfers all of his remaining energy into her. With the boost, Silica casts a final wind spell that puts out the flames spreading through the forest, but the strain knocks her off her feet. Daggers and Yu both cheer when they see the fire dying down. They praise Silica for her quick thinking and thank Lloyd for coming up with such a smart strategy. Lloyd simply smiles and says he was only doing what he could to support the team. While Daggers and Yu move to clean up the last few monsters, Lloyd finally lets himself rest. Dropping onto his back, he stares up at the sky and reflects on how far he still has to go. Even a single battle like this left him completely worn out. At the same time, a blue-haired demi-human boy hears a girl scream as she gets kidnapped, but he fails to catch up with the demon and yells in frustration. Meanwhile, after Yu and Daggers finish cleaning up, Lloyd shares his theory that the mastermind's real target is the city of Ishtar, and they walk right into his trap. After summoning some magic potions to refill his mana, he explains that the plan was to lure all the top-ranking parties out of Ishtar and keep them busy with monsters outside. Cross argues the city still has the hero and the Knight Order, so it will not fall that easily. Still, Daggers thinks Lloyd has a point, and Cross admits the dark magic stone was suspicious. Hearing that, Yu says they are heading back to the city, so Lloyd stores the potions and pulls out his staff to cast speed buffs on the team. With that, he charges off at high speed, and while Yu yells at him to wait, she and the others quickly realize they can run just as fast. Back at the mansion, Michael is enjoying a drink when the demon kidnapper, who is his client, shows up, clearly annoyed when Michael calls him that. Michael smirks and says that Gulist of the 4 Heavenly Kings doesn't exactly have a good ring to it. Ignoring that, Gulist informs him that their forces are closing in on Ishtar and everything is going as planned. Michael grins and says their win is basically guaranteed thanks to the girl, and Gulist agrees they need to keep her on their side no matter what. With a sly grin, Michael says she is key to the whole plan, and Gulist chooses to trust the man known as the Demon Lord's right-hand man, even if he does not fully get what he is scheming. Michael replies that he will gladly keep helping as long as he gets paid. With that, Gulist walks off, and Michael heads down to the girl chained up in the dark basement. Like always, he tells her to lend him her power while keeping potions ready to power her magic, and a music player powered by a dark magic stone starts playing, probably to control her mind. Meanwhile, in the forest, Lloyd and the party sprint a long distance before getting tired, so they stop and set up camp to recover their strength. Cross says they are close to the city, and after drinking potions, Silica wonders if Lloyd is pushing himself too hard since buff spells burn through a lot of mana. Hearing that, Lloyd agrees, but says that even though it is too draining to use non-stop, he figured out a way to cast it more efficiently. That makes Silica curious how long he has been doing this, so he shares that back when his master dropped him in the mountains to find his way home alone, he realized he could not survive with healing magic alone. That is why he had to use enhancement magic all the time to survive. Hearing that, Yu thinks he's gone through some really tough training, but Lloyd just sighs and thinks it is a common method. It was quite effective. Still, Yu tells him there's no way that is normal, and when Silica agrees that it's quite unusual, he is surprised to learn that even his training was special. But that makes sense since he lacked talent as a boy with special needs. After that, he tells the girls he will work harder to keep up with S-rankers like them and become helpful, making Yu concerned he is underestimating himself again. After the short break, Lloyd casts speed enhancement on everyone once again, but Yu asks him why he is still, and he explains he is being cautious to spot any danger nearby with his detection magic. Then they all run through the tall grass, and the guards patrolling outside the city are confused, seeing birds suddenly fly away from the forest because something fast is approaching. While Lloyd and the others blaze through, Silica is impressed by Lloyd's amazing ability again, and Yu is happy she can run 10 times faster, and she is still not out of breath. However, Lloyd suddenly stops and causes everyone to crash into him one by one. Cross asks him what's wrong, and he explains that he picked up something other than monsters with detection. Silica thinks it might be hunters, but says he has a bad feeling about it. So he tells everyone to go to the city and promises to catch up after he checks it out. Hearing that, Yu is adamant that everyone will come along, even though he says he is only going to investigate. But she is worried that Lloyd can't fight back if there are powerful monsters, leaving him no choice but to agree. Silica and Cross say they are a party, and party members always help each other. At the same time, 4 cultists stand around a green orb on the table and pray to something evil while holding hands together. Outside, Lloyd brings everyone to the cabin where he picked up the signal of a demon and someone along with them. Yu is shocked when he says demon, and he remembers when Dagas told him that the magic nation of demons has been silent for a long time, so they might be planning something sinister. Then he remembers the well-known fact that demons should be banned from entering the 3 major nations, and Yui is curious why he doesn't remember the time demons waged war on the 3 nations. That's when Lloyd admits he has no memories from childhood, and by the time his master found him, the war was already over. Silica figures out he might be a war orphan, and Yu feels bad for bringing it up. However, Lloyd tells her not to worry and focuses on the cabin, where something fishy is happening. Cross says they should report this to the city guards when they get back, but Lloyd wants to find out more before they do that. Even though it is risky, he says he can sense the same kind of power coming from inside as the magic stone from earlier, which could mean the demons are behind the monster attacks, and maybe even the city invasion. That makes taking the risk to investigate feel even more important, and Yu agrees that they cannot just head back now because it is their duty to stop the demons before they slip away while everyone is focused on defending the city. Just then, the others silently stare at her because it has been a long time since she acted like a real leader. With that said, they slowly approach the cabin and sneak around to a window, but it looks like nobody is inside. Seeing that, Lloyd activates detection again and notices the targets are underground. After he leads them to the right spot, Daga says they need to find the way down. Cross simply asks Silica if she can use earth magic. So while the demons blindly continue praying below, Lloyd casts enhancements on the party and Silica casts Sand Pit, which causes the ceiling of the underground room to collapse on the Shady group. Yu quickly jumps in and holds her sword to one man's neck, asking who they are and what they plan to do in their nation. Suddenly, another magician fires a barrage of rocks at her, but she deflects them without breaking a sweat. Cross shoots the attacker and Lloyd buffs Silica again, allowing her to cast Sand Pit on the rubble they are hiding behind. However, one of the cultists shoots the crumbling stones back at her, and Dagas manages to shield her just in time. With no other option, one of the men breaks away and locks the door behind him, while the others try to ambush Yu from behind. But Cross shoots them in the leg, letting her swiftly finish them off, leaving just one more. Elsewhere nearby, the demon wraps the demi-human girl in a cocoon and starts to carry her away, but Yu kicks down the door before he can escape. She rushes after him up the stairs, and thanks to Lloyd's buff, she gets ahead of him while the others follow to cut off his retreat and see what is inside the cocoon. As he runs in panic, Yu blocks his path from the front, and when he glances around, he realizes there is nowhere left to run. Lloyd tells him to surrender and start talking, but the demon says he has nothing to share and begins casting a powerful spell. Seeing this, Lloyd quickly raises barriers over the team that shield them from the lightning blast and reflect it right back at the caster. After that, the man drops the cocoon, and Lloyd notes that the girl inside appears to be an orc. Back inside the cabin, Yu feels frustrated that they could not get any useful info from the demon, and when Dagas wonders if the girl might know something, Silica points out that she is probably from the Forest Empire, so it is unlikely she was working with demons. After that, Lloyd tries healing her, and the girls are amazed again by how strong his healing magic is, so he mentions that he made this modified version himself. Watching Silica stare in shock, he explains that Marin used to modify spells like that all the time. Before long, the girl slowly opens her eyes and Yu quickly rushes over and starts flooding her with questions, leaving the girl too confused about what to answer. After a while, the girl says her name is Kureha, and when Yu asks why the demons captured her, Kureha hesitates. So Lloyd steps in and explains that they are adventurers sent to protect a farm from monsters, and that was where he sensed orc magic. Then he looks her in the eyes and tells her he heard that orcs can use magic to control monsters, and asks if the power he sensed came from her. Kureha confirms it without hesitation. Meanwhile, the city guards discover a large magic stone deep in the forest, and the moment one of them touches it, dozens of glowing monster eyes appear in the surrounding bushes. While the first guard is attacked and devoured by the monsters, the second barely escapes with a pack of wolves chasing right behind him. Back at the cabin, Lloyd asks Kureha again if she can really control monsters, and her answer worries him that such dangerous magic actually exists, and it has fallen into the wrong hands. When he asks if the demons were forcing her to use it, she nods, which confirms the plan that the demons wanted to use Kureha's power to create a monster army and take over Ishtar, giving them the perfect base to expand across the continent. Hearing that, Yu starts to wonder if they are already too late, but Lloyd refuses to give up hope. On the way back, he apologizes to Kureha for dragging her along, but she says she is just glad to finally be free from the prison. As they rest on a hill overlooking the city, Lloyd uses detection again and senses a massive horde of monsters heading toward Ishtar. But that is not all. He also detects a huge army following behind them, so when Yu asks for a plan, he turns to Kureha and asks if she can help warn the city. Seeing that, everyone feels proud that Lloyd is finally learning how to rely on his team. With that, he casts enhancement on the party, and they all sprint toward Ishtar as fast as they can. Meanwhile, back in the kingdom, Alan is furious that all of the new mages applying to the hero's party are complete trash, because they cannot even use basic storage magic like Lloyd, and the girls agree they can barely cast 2 spells at the same time. After Alan scoffs that they are all useless, Lena suggests that maybe Lloyd was special, but the hero laughs out loud, thinking that is impossible. With that said, Lulu asks what they should do just as a knight barges into the room to inform the hero that patrol guards have warned them about an army of over 10,000 monsters advancing toward Ishtar. Hearing this, everyone is shocked, but Alan smugly assures the knight it is time for him to show why he is called a hero. After the knight leaves, Sheena quietly asks if he is sure, only for Alan to brag he has been wanting to show off his power for a long time, leaving the girls seriously concerned. Back in the forest, Alan and Kureha find the second unit of the monster army, and he realizes that this force might be even bigger than the one attacking Ishtar at the moment. The city stands no chance if both armies attack from 2 sides, so sending the others to report back was the right call, and it is now up to him to eliminate the monsters. Hearing that, Kureha feels bad for the monsters and asks if they can do it without hurting them, explaining they are forcibly mind-controlled by the demons through her magic, and she does not want innocent creatures to get hurt anymore. Lloyd is surprised by how much she cares for the monsters, and he agrees to find a solution with the least possible casualties. Then he asks if her magic can send them back where they belong, but she says their numbers are too large, though she thinks it might be possible with his support magic. After that, she begins casting her spell while Lloyd gets ready as well, but Kureha suddenly stops, saying her magic has been disrupted by something in the forest. On the other hand, Alan insults all of the adventurers gathered at the guild to defend the city by calling them weak, then jokes they might be useful as pawns and warns them not to get in his way, causing one man to get angry until his friend holds him back while Alan calls him dumb again to mess with him. Just then, the branch manager shows up and reminds everyone that the real enemy is the monsters, so they do not have time for infighting, and Alan gets up to announce his genius plan. First, all of the mages have to go full out from the start and blast at least 10 monsters each, then the hero, and the attackers will hold off the horde until the mages can recharge their magic power, and he believes that if they repeat this process, the monsters will be wiped out in no time, but the doubtful looks on everyone's faces says otherwise. Alan asks what their problem is, and one of the mages speaks up that her magic is not nearly that powerful, while the others admit that their strongest spell can only take out a single monster at most. That makes Alan furious as he yells as the least they can do, but right then Mia speaks up as well to say that her magic power became much weaker a little while ago. Alan is completely shocked upon hearing that and demands to know why she did not mention it earlier, but Mia reveals that all the girls have been struggling with their magic since then. When he asks when it started, Lulu guesses it happened around the time Lloyd left, and Alan immediately blames the girls for tricking him. But Lena fires back and blames him instead for being too busy playing hero and never showing up for training. Everyone is outraged to hear that the hero has been slacking, making him angry, but Lena criticizes him again, which causes him to lose it and throw a punch at her with full power. But Lena effortlessly stops it and calmly advises him to quit his job already. After looking around and seeing everyone giving him cold stares, Alan storms out, crying as he yells that they are on their own. Lena does not even flinch while the other girls feel bad and chase after him. The adventurers are left dumbfounded that the hero is nothing like the legends claim, Right as they begin thinking they should abandon the city and run for it, Lena grabs their attention to declare she has left the heroes' party and then asks them to join her in the coming battle. Her charisma wins them over instantly, but before giving them a plan, she first asks if anyone there knows the white mage named Lloyd. At the same time, Lloyd and Kureha discover the magic stone that is disrupting her spell. When he asks if he simply needs to break it, she agrees but explains that the problem is that there are likely a lot more of them scattered across the area, and she cannot regain full control over the monsters until every single one of them is destroyed. Hearing that, she tells Lloyd she can probably sense their locations if she gets close enough, but the area itself is simply too large for her to cover quickly. That is when Lloyd surprises her with his brilliant idea to use his mind-sharing spell to make her sensing range as large as his broken detection spell. After that, he amazes her again by using his invisibility magic while humbly claiming it is not that good since even a weak hit can dispel it, causing Kureha to seriously doubt if he is even human. After that, the two stealthily sneak up to the first magic stone and neutralize it, which immediately causes all of the monsters nearby to leave. As they move toward the next one, an army of adventurers stands ready outside the city walls beside a giant trench, prepared to defend Ishtar with their lives. A knight asks the guild manager if he really thinks this plan will work, but the old man simply replies that he believes in the boy Lena spoke about earlier. A few hours before that moment, she had announced in front of everyone that the real core of the hero's party was neither the Saintess Shina nor the so-called hero, but rather a humble white mage named Lloyd. The adventurers are confused because Lloyd was supposed to be a useless supporter, so they ask why the hero's party had kicked him out. Lena admits her party was blinded by the hero's title, which is why they never considered that their easy victories came thanks to Lloyd's magic and thought it was their own strength. The guild manager, who saw the hero in full glory firsthand, asks if the impressive power he saw was all due to Lloyd's support magic, and Lena confirms it. Hearing about his talents, the adventurers regain hope, and after Lena says they are sure to win with Lloyd's support, she asks once again if anyone knows where he is. Just then, the manager explains that he keeps track of every party in the guild and Lloyd's is not in the city at the moment because he is on an S-rank mission to subjugate monsters at a farm that takes days to travel to. However, Lena believes he could use his magic to shorten the travel time, so she asked everyone to trust that he would come, and that is why the manager believes everyone agreed with her plan even though their families' lives depend on it. Just then, the monster horde comes into sight and Lena orders everyone to prepare for battle. First, the archer squad rains arrows on the monsters crossing the trench, while her shield squad pushes them back, allowing the mages to cast fire magic to roast monsters alive, and then use water magic to flush the monsters away while making the trenches even bigger. Later that night in the forest, Yu thinks Ishtar is near and asks if they have any stamina remaining, but Cross, Daggers, and Silica are not tired at all because Lloyd's magic is still in effect. Then Silica mentions Lloyd is still out there fighting non-stop to protect the city, so they cannot afford to take a break either, and with that, Yu's team sets off again. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Kureha reach the last magic stone surrounded by high wolves and blood panthers, but Kureha manages to neutralize the crystal without being detected. Just then, however, the monsters start growling at each other, and Kureha realizes she got careless as blood panthers and high wolves are sworn enemies that would rather fight each other than go home. Right then, the stone is knocked over and the slight impact dispels Lloyd's invisibility spell, making her think she's a gunner. However, Lloyd uses his fireworks to attract all of them toward him. Meanwhile, Lena and the knights fight hard to hold the monsters back, but a knight rushes over to inform her that one of their defense lines is about to be breached. To make things worse, the exhausted knights see another giant horde charging toward them, but before the monsters can strike, a massive fire tornado burns them all to ash in an instant, and everyone cheers that an S-rank party has finally arrived. At the same time, Lloyd blinds the beasts with a flash of light while dodging their attacks using physical enhancement, but he knows he can't last for long. As Kureha watches him in concern, it suddenly hits her that he is not attacking them at all because he promised her not to hurt the monsters like she asked. Right as Lloyd is caught and about to be swallowed whole, she starts singing a song that instantly calms the monster's rage. As they turn to leave, Lloyd asks what kind of magic that was, but Kureha explains she only asked them to go. It turns out her power does not control monsters directly, but instead allows her to speak straight to their hearts. Lloyd thanks her for saving his life, but she says he is the one who really saved her, and with that, he mentions they should hurry to Ishtar quickly. Back in the city, Cross and the archers rain arrows from above, while Yu and Daggers help hold the front line and Silica blasts the battlefield with her powerful magic. But that is still not enough because the front line is worn out and the archers and mages are running out of arrows and mana potions fast. While even Cross and Silica start to lose hope, Lena calls out for everyone not to give in, but the knights near her are quickly overwhelmed and a wolf sneaks up to attack her from behind, managing to injure her hand. Before long, the front line is broken and chaos explodes, making everyone's morale crumble. But right then, Kira's song echoes across the battlefield with Lloyd's magic amplifying its range, and the furious monsters suddenly turn around and begin leaving. After Kira finishes, Lloyd becomes worried when she nearly collapses, and she says she is only out of energy. He admits her ability to reach so many monsters at once is incredible, but she tells him it would not have been possible without his magic and asks what exactly he did. He explains that he just used some layered support magic and assures Kira that her power is what truly allowed them to save all the monsters. Hearing this, she reveals her real name is Claire. Lloyd tells her that there must be a reason why she hid it, but he will ask her about it later because for now, they have to take care of these golems marching towards the city. Back at his mansion, Michael drinks his wine with confidence, saying the town should be destroyed by now, but his underling barges in to report something urgent and he smirks, thinking his plan succeeded. But the messenger informs him that the monsters all simply went back home, which shocks Michael to the core. At the same time, Lloyd confirms that demons sent the golems, and after he buffs her, the two of them run as fast as possible toward the city through the golems that seem to be enhanced. And to cross the trench, he suddenly grabs her and leaps over with an impressive entry that leaves everyone stunned. Seeing him, Yu and Daggers congratulate him on driving the monsters away, but he reveals Claire was behind it all. Hearing him call her Claire, Yu is confused because her name was Kireha, but she lets it go, thinking she misheard it the first time. Right then, his legs give out, which Silica thinks is because he used his magic weight too much, and Daggers tells him to rest a little, but Lloyd refuses to rest until the city is safe. 3 Knights of the Order arrive to greet him, and they are surprised to see a demi-human. Lloyd requests the Knights to take care of her and then thanks Claire for her priceless help, and she thanks him back for saving her. Then the captain smiles as he says Lloyd is their only hope, and Lena tells him Alan wussed out of the battle after a little squabble with her in front of everyone at the guild. That scares Lloyd because real lives are at stake if the hero doesn't protect the city, but Lena angrily says Alan was never a hero. Just then, her wound hurts, so he quickly uses his overpowered healing magic to make it disappear, but that drains him so much he nearly collapses again. Seeing how much he's exhausted himself, Lena shyly tells him the hero party was strongest only with him, and now she feels guilty she did not stop them from kicking him out back then, and apologizes for it. However, the wholesome moment is interrupted by the golems who are filling up the trench. Thinking there aren't many left, Lloyd warns they aren't normal golems as the knights bravely attack, only to get blown away and their swords broken in two. At that moment, the mages and archers use their strongest attacks, but the fire gets absorbed and arrows bounce off like toothpicks. When everyone realizes the golems are too strong, they start retreating and Yu cannot come up with a plan, but Lloyd says he can enhance everyone at once. Yui and the rest remind him there are dozens of groups, but he says he's mastered his role and can buff each group one at a time. With that, he casts his support magic on everyone and falls to his knees, including Yu's party, but he warns that the effect will not last that long. Yu is confused for a moment before she climbs a tower to announce that Lloyd casts support magic on everyone, so they now have the power to fight back. One of the knights doubts her claim, but then Lena saves him from being flattened by the effect of his power, and Yu jumps on top of a golem to slice it completely in half with one strike. After that, Lena hypes everyone up and their morale rises as they begin to believe in the power. At the same time, Lloyd orders Cross to back up the mage unit while Daggers goes to protect Silica on the front lines. He nearly faints again, but the guild manager orders a knight to take him away while Cross leads the archers, raining arrows mixed with fire magic on the golems. Standing at the front, Silica blasts away every golem in sight with her S-rank flames, and while the battle goes on, Lloyd watches from above, cheering them on. A few hours later, only one last golem remains, but it snaps an adventurer's sword and blows him away. Yu and Lloyd both realize the support magic has run out, so as the golem nears the city gates, Yu tries to block it, but Daggers pushes her aside and guards against the gigantic fist all by himself. With the last of his mana, Lloyd leaves it to Yui and strengthens her greatsword. So while Lena and Daggers hold back the golem's punch, Yu runs up its arm and finishes it off in one clean slice. Then, as she stands there wondering if it is finally over, everyone celebrates the victory and Lloyd collapses to rest on the cold stone floor. Watching from afar, one notes that Lloyd has become much more successful now than he was back when he was with the hero party. Meanwhile, at Michael's mansion, the great demon bursts into his office ready to crush him, but Michael has already fled. In frustration, the demon smashes the lying rascal's table and wrecks the place. Realizing that someone is secretly ruining his plans, he swears he will take revenge. Back in the city, Lloyd wakes up in an inn and Yu walks in, happy to see him awake since he had been out for a full day. Hearing that, Lloyd feels down, thinking he still is not strong enough, but Yu cuts his doubt short by opening the door, where a huge crowd of townsfolk wait to thank him. Lloyd panics and shuts the door in their faces, scared of the spotlight. That makes Yu angry, so she opens the door herself, but Lloyd leaps out the window and runs like his life depends on it. Meanwhile, at Marin's place, her door bursts open before Will can even knock, but he is not too surprised when she explains it is a security measure against shady hooded guys like him. Lily calls him the Phantom Alchemist, but he explains he stopped making potions a long time ago and now works as a detective instead. Marin feels glad to see him after so many years and asks how Lloyd is doing, so Will jokingly replies that the hero's party kicked him out a long time ago. But he quickly adds there is nothing to worry about because Lloyd already joined an S-rank party. Thor and Lily are surprised that the shy kid managed to come so far, and Marin says that facing failure is also a kind of training. Will smiles at her words and then reveals he has some exciting news to share about Lloyd. Back in town, Lloyd hides in the shadows watching the townsfolk until you and the others finally catch him. So he asks why everyone is chasing after him like lunatics. Cross and Silica assure him they do not want to cook him for dinner but only want to show gratitude because the town would be doomed without his support. Hearing that, Lloyd sighs, thinking he only cast a little bit of support magic on the ones actually fighting, but you and Dagus both get mildly irritated by his stupidly high standards, and Lena tells him to believe more in his own skills, which gives him a quiet moment of realization. Back at Marin's place, Will explains that Lloyd is far too humble and doesn't realize how powerful he really is, which makes some people want to punch him in the gut, but Marin smiles because at least he will never become overconfident the way she once was. At the town square, the people start cheering when they see Lloyd, and he gets embarrassed as he believes they should be cheering for the knights and adventurers who risked their lives to defend the city. But a veteran from the Knight Order argues that Lloyd made them strong enough to save everyone, and the crowd honors him with a new title of Ishar's hero. While he struggles to swallow such a huge honor, Dagus pressures him into accepting it with a big smile. So Lloyd gives up resisting and says he will try his hardest to enjoy the entire day, though Yu reminds him that the whole point is to relax. At the same time, the blonde ex-hero rages on hearing Lloyd was declared a hero, but China reminds Alan he would lose his title anyway after refusing his duty to protect the city during an emergency. Alan angrily yells he already knows that, and after seeing the frightened looks on the girls' faces, he decides they should leave the city and tells them to pack their things since he will not live in a place where a trash white mage like Lloyd is honored as a hero. The girls hesitate for a moment, but eventually they quietly follow after him. Meanwhile, Lily is left stunned when Will reveals the swordswoman in Lloyd's party is only 17, and that his entire party is filled with rare talents like her. With that, the former members of the legendary party raise a toast to his success, and Will says it is an honor to be reunited with his friends once again, but Lily knows deep down he already expected this day would come to commemorate Cybel's death. With that said, Will suddenly get serious and shares that the demons failed in their plan to control monsters using orc magic and conquer Ishtar, but he raises the question of why they chose to attack at this specific time. Marin tells him to spill what he is thinking, and when Will suggests it might be because the Demon King has returned, she explodes in anger and shouts that he should be long dead after the destructive magic Sybil blasted him with. She refuses to believe he could resurrect after that sacrifice, because it would make Sybil's death meaningless, but Thor steps in and tells her to calm down since nothing is confirmed yet, and they should stop panicking and instead focus on what they can do with the future Sybil entrusted to them. At the same time, Lloyd and the others are summoned to a lord's mansion, where a polite man greets them at the entrance and invites them inside. There Yu immediately spots Claire and assumes she was also summoned. The man corrects her, saying Claire is his special guest, and then introduces himself as Lord Abel Lucas. All of them are shocked, and Cross shyly admits he thought Abel was just the butler or something. Silica explains their confusion, pointing out that they heard the lord of this domain has ruled for over a decade, so he should be a much older man. Abel laughs and reveals he has been putting serious effort into his skincare routine to look young, and Lloyd remembers that Marin also looks far too young for her age, making you wonder if beauty magic exists. Abel promises he will gladly teach them youth magic another time, but insists they have far more urgent business to discuss regarding Claire. Meanwhile, in the Forest Empire, a demi-human boy named Syrian stares into the distance and wonders where Claire might be, when a soldier suddenly rushes in and reports that they have finally found a lead on her. Back at Abel's mansion, Lloyd is stunned to hear that Claire is the Forest Empire's second princess, and she shyly admits that was the reason she kept her real name hidden until now. Abel then asks the group what they think of Claire's unique magic, and Lloyd honestly answers it is both impressive and terrifying at the same time because of how easily it could be used for evil. Abel agrees and explains that this is exactly why they must protect her from the demons at all costs. He reveals that the Empire is desperately searching for her, but he wishes for her saviors to personally escort her to the capital of their Furin kingdom. That confuses everyone since normally, adventurers would never be entrusted with escorting a princess, as that is a duty of the knights. Abel clarifies that this is precisely why, if no knights are involved, the demons will be less likely to catch on. The gang accepts the mission, and Claire asks them to stop treating her with hesitation just because she is royalty. Yu casually shakes her hand as if nothing has changed, and with that, they sets off for the Empire. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.